All right, Jhevman, we're live.
All right, sounds good.
Okay, so your thoughts on tonight's fight?
Um, I feel like Bernard Hopkins is old, man. That's it. I don't think there's too much more to be said about that. He's old. He's 51, pushing 52 years old. He's fighting a young power puncher. I feel De La Hoya should have definitely got a younger, not a younger guy. He should have got a more easy guy. Like, you know what I mean? Obviously, Bernard wants to fight like maybe a younger guy, but he should have got a more easy guy for Bernard's freaking last fight. Like it just seems whack to me.
Right. Well, I think you have to commend Hopkins for going out strong, picking a power puncher, someone who was pretty consistent. Although I can't say that he was the greatest boxer that he fought. He was very evidently youthful. I mean, when I thought Smith was slowing down prior to Hopkins getting TKO'd, he really did come back the next round and show his youth. I mean, the fact that Hopkins got quote unquote pushed out of the ring with a punch, a clean punch, and clean punches. It really shows something to number one, those ropes being too loose, um, and number two, Hopkins just wasn't active enough. I mean, he should have fought a little bit more in the last 2 years to take this type of fight on the way out. It's too bad because I think Hopkins he had the means to win this fight. My scorecards was that Smith was up 1 point,
Yeah.
but the end result is a fact that Hopkins doesn't go out the way he wants to, unfortunately, and Smith doesn't really get the win that he might have wanted to get either. So I'm not impressed with the way this fight ended. I don't think Smith is either, and that speaks to what type of man Smith is. I commend him on that as well.
Yeah, no, I don't really necessarily have the problem with the character of Smith or necessarily even how he handled the situation, right? Like he didn't really like boast about it or anything too much. So that's not my issue. My issue is this: first of all, this Hopkins falling out the ring thing. Like this has happened before, right? Chad Dawson or whatever. Like you know what I mean? Like
I was thinking a little bit of that.
yeah,
I,
like, you know
I
what
was
I mean?
I was reminded of some foolery before pertaining to a Hopkins fight.
Hopkins falling
So I
out the
mean,
ring, right?
yeah.
Like, come
Well,
on,
I
man.
didn't
Like,
I didn't exactly remember what happened, but someone seemed funny. An injury. I think it was an
I,
injury that happened, right? A tackle or something.
yeah, I think he fell out the ring, guy.
So I mean,
Like this has happened before. Like so, like that's one. My next thing is like I'm not mad at Hopkins for trying to take a tough fight, whatever it is, right? Like people, like, we commend Hopkins for doing this. Why is Hopkins the one doing this? Like, what's going on with all the young dudes that you know what I mean? That they ain't fighting nobody. That just sounds crazy to me, man. Just sounds crazy, right? We gotta commend Hopkins because nobody else wants to fight each other.
yeah, it doesn't make any sense to me either. I don't know what's going on with these promotional entities. Really, what they're doing is they're keeping the fighters away from money because the bottom line is like if you're not fighting, you're not making money.
Yeah, like my
So I mean, all these fighters just waiting for the big fights, waiting, waiting prime years away of their life.
yeah, well, like you know, what I mean, like exactly, like even that was my whole issue with even the whole Andre Ward thing. Like I was just like, man, like you know, he had his whole issue with the promoter, right? Like, and like what did I take up like 2-3 years of his career basically? I'm just like, man, like you should have just fought some dudes, right? Like you know what I mean? Like fought a couple whatever dudes, 1-2 marquee names, and call it a day. Like you know.
Yeah, definitely
And
too many years off. Too many years off for
yeah,
Wood as well. I
you know
mean,
what
I
I
think I
mean?
think that win against Kovalev would have been a lot more impressive for Wood had he remained active as well.
Yeah,
Um,
exactly.
I don't think anybody would question that win from Wood had he remained active. Um, I mean, I still think he won, but yeah, the real people who lose, aside from the fans, when fighters don't fight, uh, is the fighters themselves.
Yeah, well, and the fans too. The fans are definitely missing out, right? And like for me, just like I said, man, like it's I really hope Bernard just hangs it up after this, right? Like I guess he could fight a bum if he wants, but it has to be a bum. It has to be a bum. Like and that's
No,
it.
I don't think he has any interest in fighting anyone else except for, and I don't even want to put this out there because you could see that he had already made enough promises around him to say that that was his last fight. But I really did think that he may have had it in him to have a rematch for this, um, because of the
I don't want to see
circumstances.
that.
Now,
I don't
I'm
want to
not,
see that because the
I'm not,
circumstances.
yeah,
He didn't do good enough. I'm sorry,
no,
Bernard. He didn't
I'm
do
not
good
saying I
enough.
want to see it, right? And I think that Hopkins doesn't want to see it himself. I mean, I don't think he wants to be part of it because of the commitments he made at the other people, and also the promises he made to himself. Right? I mean, if he did call this the final one, I think that would
Yeah.
have been a little bit different. I mean, he's got his promotional name on this. He's got his network job with HBO
Yep.
on this. I mean, I'm not sure they'll support him the same way if he had another fight. Ironically, right? Because if you won this fight by knocking out him,
Mhm.
then don't you think someone would be asking him from potentially HBO or Golden Boy,
Yeah.
yo, can we get you back in the ring?
Yeah. But the thing
And
is,
that's the crazy part, right? These guys they're getting offered up on platters.
yeah, but the problem is just that Hopkins is not knocking nobody out first off, right? Like that's just not happening. He's not knocking no young dude out at 51 years old. It's not happening, right? They're too young. They're too strong, right?
I'm thinking
They
he could
got
have dropped him. I don't know if he would have knocked him out, but I think he could have dropped him.
no. He could even
But
do that.
Smith was a big guy, man. I
Yeah,
mean,
man.
Smith was a monster, and I know here we going with that verbiage again, but Smith is a big guy compared to Hopkins, and you could clearly see that. And I know you mentioned this before the fight, but Hopkins, you're saying Hopkins was showing like that he's in shape for an older man, but like
Yeah,
he looked more like an older man. Like you could see his midsection and filled out, even though he didn't have a stomach. Just you
yeah,
could see the inside of his chest was more full.
yeah. That's
You know what I
that,
mean? His
that,
arms were
that
smaller. I mean, when you're fighting at a heavier weight and you're fighting against someone like Smith, like Smith's a big dude, man.
Yeah, yeah, man.
He's
That's
not
why.
wasting any pounds with anything else.
That's why I was saying. I was just like what I mean. Like people are like, and they're like, oh, maybe Hopkins could go down to 160 for a really big fighter. Hopkins was trying to entertain that. It's just like he's too old, man. Like he's not gonna be able to make it. Like
Hey, if he made that
too
weight,
much
I think
strain
he
on
could
his
have went
body.
down for that. But I don't know. I don't know how long he lasts because I didn't see him moving around too well out there. Right, his mouth opened up a little bit earlier in the fight, and he was breathing. I mean, I know he was using his expertise and his experience to keep him going, but I mean,
Like
I don't
he
know.
sh-
I don't
he
know.
sh- he should have fought a bum, straight up. He needed to fight a bum. You know what I mean? Or he should have been fighting bums prior to this, like not televised fights or whatever. Like just something like kind of set up. What do they need to do? But he needed to fight a bum. That's it. He needed bums, right? Like you know what I mean? He's a Hall of Famer, right? Um, he's 51 years old. He's earned the right to fight a bum, right? Like you know what I mean? And yeah, this
I don't think that was what his career was about, and I don't think he wanted to go out like that because that's not the type of respect he wanted to give himself.
yeah, but
Um,
like, come on, let's be realistic here, man. Like, even all those guys, Traverse Cloud, let's be realistic here. Hopkins was not supposed to beat any of them. No
yeah, but
offense.
even Cloud was kind of like a come from nowhere kind of star. You know what I mean? There was a couple of those type of people that he beat. Even Shumanov, right? Like he's
Yeah.
had issues getting fights, right? Even though he should, like Shumanov versus Smith would be a good fight.
No offense, man, but like in my opinion, once you pass 40, if you face somebody that's high tier, you should automatically lose, right? Like so, like really and truly, like all those guys suck, and that's really why Hopkins beat them, right? They're not top tier fighters. You could only beat a good fighter. That's it. But you shouldn't be able to beat anybody top tier.
But that's not
Um,
Hopkins' fault.
no, it's not Hopkins' fault, but then it also is a reflection on what's going on in the game, right? Like Hopkins shouldn't even be thinking about going into the ring, right? Like, you know what I mean? Like, Kovalev shut it down, right? But that was showing that, like, Kovalev was just on that level, right? It's just like, it doesn't matter how much experience or whatever you have. I'm just way too young and too strong, and my skill level is too high for your experience to overcompensate for whatever else, right? And that's how it should be, right? You know what I mean? Like Hopkins shouldn't be beating up anybody, right? And that's what I'm saying. Really, realistically, at the age of 51, the only person he should have fought was a bum, and you could tell he could handle more than a bum. But guess what? For your last one, right? Why not fight? Maybe not exactly a bum, but a whatever fighter, and look good.
Yeah, you're
Look
talking about going out
good.
strong.
Yeah, man.
Right,
Like
right.
you've earned that. He's boxing alumni. He's a future Hall of Famer. Like, you know what I mean? Come on.
So now to kind of play retrospective here, if Hopkins had fought Smith at the time that he fought Kovalev, do you think that Hopkins could have beat Smith?
Potentially. 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 Right? Because Smith wouldn't have half the experience either, right?
Oh, if we're just rewinding time, right? Taking a
Yeah.
few years back. That's
Yeah.
true. That's true.
So
All right, man. Well, thanks for joining Dread Talk Boxing on this first live post-fight review.
yeah, man. Yeah, man, it's pretty cool being out here for the first time talking about the fight. Yeah, okay fight. Kind of cringy watching at the end there with Hopkins falling out the ring. Um, I've never fallen out the ring, and I guess whenever I've seen someone fall out the ring, I've never actually seen that 20-second rule actually properly put into effect, right? Because usually when someone falls out the ring, it's like something crazy is happening. They're disqualifying the fight. Something's happening. So, that was an interesting kind of learn for me today. That's with me being in boxing for a while now.
I
But
wasn't fully aware of that rule myself. I might have vaguely remembered some pieces of it, but I'm not sure that the entire ringside was fully aware of that rule. That might be part of the issue. Not blaming anything on anything else. I mean, the ref did a good job tonight. Pat Russell, you're not going to normally see him getting involved too much, which is what I like about him. He's there for the rules and he's there to keep the fight clean. As far as the prelim fights go, I didn't think there was really too much impressiveness going on with those, but it wasn't about them anyways. Talking about attending this fight live, as much as I really wanted to be there tonight, I had a weird feeling in my stomach watching him fall out the ring, and
yeah, you know
I'm
what I
not
mean?
sure that I don't know how it would have felt about seeing that live. It was cool to see Dave Chappelle there, cool to see a lot of the celebrities and other comedians, George Lopez, Danny Trejo. You see Golovkin was up in there looking serious, potentially because he's getting ready to put on his Jacobs fight. We'll see if that actually happens.
No, apparently it's official. It's done. I hear it's done.
Again, we'll see.
Oh my
I've
goodness.
experienced. I'm not trying to go back to this, but I've experienced a little bit too many letdowns when it comes to this whole "it's done" thing, this Povetkin nonsense coming again.
Oh,
So So we won't get into that today because this is really about Hopkins.
Yeah.
I've looked up to Hopkins for quite some time now. Uh, Ever since I started getting deep when Sports Center, I think, had a piece on him, if it was ESPN, probably about 10, 15 years ago now. And that's when I really took more interest into him. And he still remains one of my top fighters of all time. There's still a lot that you can learn from watching this fight, just watching him move. He had one round tonight where he won that round by defense.
Yes.
I'm not sure a lot of people would have scored that way. It's pretty clear that quite a few of the HBO cast wasn't having that, although Max
No,
was
Harold
keeping it
Letterman
real.
is ridiculous, guy. Yo, I'm telling you, I'm calling it out right now, man. Harold better stop, bro. Harold better stop with this foolishness.
Yeah, this is a few times, but that's all on the controversial topic. This is just about just having a good sign off for Hopkins with his
well,
fighting career.
well, it wasn't right, but I will say this. I will say this. Now that Hopkins' career is officially done, do you think now that Hopkins is going to be generally accepted by most boxing pundits as a top 10 all-time great?
I know it's crazy to say this, but if he won this fight tonight, there should have been no doubt. But even if you won this fight tonight, they would have said, well, who's Joe Smith? Right? And
Yes.
and that's what's wrong about this conversation right now. This conversation includes a lot more fights than just this one. The fact that he fought Kovalev well before Andre Ward fought him.
Yeah, but here's the next thing, though, right? The fact that the reason why they're going to bring up who's Joe Smith is really the glaring elephant or the big elephant in the room that no one wants to address is the fact that you're not supposed to be fighting at that age, because realistically, right? It's like, okay, well, you're Bernard Hopkins, but really at the same time, you're not Bernard Hopkins. You know what I mean? Your body, your ability is not going to be comfortable or comparable to the greatness that we're used to seeing.
Right.
And then that's why you kind of get stuck in that rock and a hard place.
Right. Well, it's tough, I'm sure, for the fighter to understand that as well.
Yeah.
Probably even more tough when more time is taken off than should be. But, you know, it's unfortunate that it ended this way. Normal circumstances, I would have wanted to see a rematch. But I think even B-Hop knows that this time, you know, he's just going to go his own way with this. He's given the sport of boxing enough. And if you heard his post-fight, you could actually hear that he had a lot left to say. He was very clear. He was actually searching for words less sometimes than I see him in some of the fight game segments. So that was also very good. Will the boxing world accept him?
Well, the boxing world definitely accepts B-Hop. Will here's the next thing though, and his story has not been given a proper tell for how amazing it is, right? Like there's no comeback. Like, you know what I mean? If Jim Lampley wants to get emotional, all right, this is the time to do it. But I guess because the fight just he didn't even get to go to 12 rounds. So you know, I guess it was even tough to get that. But like, you know, like the Bernard Hopkins story definitely needs to be told properly. Like, you know, maybe some sort of big screen adaptation or something like that, because like it's an amazing story.
I know we spoke about this briefly a little while ago.
Yeah.
That's definitely something that should happen, and it would no doubt be an awesome story.
Oh yeah,
I
man.
mean,
Like
and one that's not really ever happened before, and
no.
I'm not sure will happen again. Like with technology the way it is, with people being able to do things the way they can nowadays and focus on a specific sport, you would think that people could fight longer.
Yeah.
But with the way that the whole boxing community has really evolved, it hasn't allowed the fighters to adapt in fighting. It's only allowed them to adapt in training, right?
Yeah.
And publicity. And actually publicity has regressed as much as I'd like to think it's taken a step up. It's regressed to the point where there's so many promoters bickering that fights don't happen.
Yeah, well, there is that. I also do feel that they do got to bring back kind of like a bum in a month situation where fighters agree to get paid less, but they fight, lesser opponents, but it's to get their name out there more, right? Like, what I mean? Especially the upcoming guys, like I should be seeing them on every undercard possible. And you keep seeing them. And you keep seeing a showcase. Like honestly, like especially when you're upcoming, I think the minimum fights you should have per year is probably like 6.
Yep, that's definitely a conversation for another day.
Yeah, 100%.
Because that definitely can be brought into deeper depth. Um, I will say that I quickly saw a tweet earlier on this evening, right after the fight. Not exactly sure if it was from Fight Nights or what, but saying essentially like you can cancel your HBO subscription. Um, I thought it has some humor to it, but also a little truth. I don't really know where a lot of these fighters are going right now. Who's signed and who may not be signed. If Golovkin finds his way on PVC, not sure. But
No,
at
no, I heard it. I heard it's on supposed to be on HBO pay-per-view. This one.
HBO, okay. So
Yeah.
Jacobs gets the treatment he deserves as well. Good to see. That's the only way I guess both those guys can get paid appropriately. Um, Again, a conversation for another day. Happy that Hopkins looks okay and he's able to walk away from this one because that fall could have been something pretty serious.
Yes, it could have been. You know what I mean? I'm just glad that it still seems like he could retire with all his faculties. You know what I mean? We don't need to lose another one of our, boxing greats to some um, disease or, cognitive deterioration or anything like that. You know what I mean?
Yep, 100% agree. It's good to see him go out on top, and he did go out on top. B Hop, the executioner, the alien, however you want to call him, Bernard Hopkins. Thank you very much. Appreciated watching you.
Yes.
Have a
I
good
as
night,
well.
sir.
Yeah. Good night, everyone.